There's good graphics up there. Everyone's into art over here. We're not just skateboarding, we're a culture. Our base is skateboarding, but we expand it way further. This is all like warehouse, mostly up here and downstairs, and then this is just our online store.
This is the weed sock section?
Different, not just weed. We got shrooms and beer, regular ones, and then weed, palm trees, back to weed. I mean, Japanese maple leaf. We make baby weed socks. Well, we were making the plant life stuff for years and it wasn't selling. And then all of a sudden it took off. But I do get a lot of cease and desist letters, and they're usually the funniest things ever. Hooters, trick bike, hutch. I've gotten cease and desist from shit I didn't even know we did. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Yeah, there's so many things that we make that we want and it doesn't sell, and then you make stuff that's not your favorite and it sells. But that's I've been dealing with that for 20 years. I mean, that's just the way it is.
What area of New York are you from, and just like general, like how you got into skating?
I grew up on 23rd and 1st, which is Peter Cooper Stuyvesant town. There are like 14-story brick buildings from 14th Street to 23rd on 1st Avenue all the way to FDR. I mean, I've had a skateboard in my house probably since I was 4 years old. And it was just a plastic skateboard, and then I remember skating around my neighborhood like 9 and 10. You know, we used to just kneeboard all around the place. We just had shitty boards.
Do you remember learning how to ollie?
I remember it 100%. I think there was a kid in my neighborhood and he showed me and basically was like, hey, this is how you do it. And right away I just learned it. Falling, but doing little ollies. And from that day on, I was 100% addicted. It was like every single day, that's all I did.
I met him, he skated with this kid, we used to call him Slide, Alex Valich. And Alex was from Canarsie, and I skated with this kid named Jimmy Grandine, who lived in Canarsie. And we all would go skate the Remsen Avenue banks. And that's where I first met Huff. He always had like the biggest ollie. You know, he'd stack boards on the side, and then like, okay, here comes Huff, and he would just ollie over those are the big boards. And you were like, whoa.
When you're like a younger skater, you're kind of like lackadaisical about stuff. You're a kid, you're 14, you really don't care. But Keith sort of had this, grab his board. As we got in the elevator, he'd start popping ollies as this thing was going down. Keith was pushing. The second he could get outside that thing, boom. His madness for this, his obsession for it, you know, translated to going on skating missions at like, 3 in the morning when it's 20 degrees out with a backpack and a camera and 3 of your friends eating shit to get something. Keith was that guy that it never shut off. Ow! And I don't know if it's a conscious thing, but early on, yeah, he was ahead of everybody in that. And I think that contributed to his success later on.
Keith was always good, yeah. Like him and Keenan were always, to me, like ahead of like myself and the guys that I skated with on Long Island, you know. It seemed like anyone from the city was kind of a little bit more advanced or up on shit, if that's what you want to call it. He was like technical too. He was, went big, went tech, did everything. So I always had that pop.
I think like 15 or 16, I really met the crew that was the future. So I met Chris Keefe and Jones Keefe. We all started talking, and then I showed them around my neighborhood.
Actually, Keith, I think, was by himself the first time we met him, and he was just super cool, and he had all these spots to take us to. And he had like a little routine that he had, and he took us through it, and it was kind of dangerous sometimes, actually, because there was some projects there, and like he was like, all right, when we skate through this little plaza, go fast and just skate through, hit the steps, and then, we're gonna go to this next spot. And it was just like, it was just sick from, he just had like this little run plan.
And then I met Ray Matei. Ray Matei was one of the first people I met because he was living in Canarsie. I would take the train all the way out to Canarsie to skate some random banks or skate a launch ramp all the way in Canarsie. And then he was affiliated with Gino Iannucci, John Buscemi, Alex Valich. Then that became this whole Long Island crew that we became friends with.
We'd go to Manhattan and stay at Keith's house with Keith and his mother and father.
No, I think the time is now.
you go to sleep already, man? Catch some salad.
Yeah, those were fun times, skating in the city all day, crashing at Huff's house, and just a lot of pushing through the streets. Yeah, just going spot to spot.
It's late 80s, early 90s. I mean, all that is kind of that zone where everything was open in downtown Manhattan, more accessible and easier to skate.
And then the thing was Manhattan and downtown, like the banks, it was like everybody came from everywhere and went to the banks. You know what I mean? That's how everybody like met each other. You know, like that's where, oh, this guy's from Queens, this guy's from Brooklyn, this guy's from Manhattan, this guy's from Connecticut or Jersey or the Bronx or wherever they're from, you know? I remember seeing him and feeling like that was the first person I knew that was gonna get sponsored.
No one really looked to be sponsored, but there was one team that you wanted to be sponsored by, which was Shut, because that team was just out of control bananas. Looked to Kobe Santiago, Mike Kepper, Bruno Musso, of course Ronnie Smith. Shut kind of set it off. There's a way to get sponsored instead of like California trying to find us.
Shut was the shit. I was outside Skate NYC one day, and Sean Sheffy was just outside doing the biggest ollies and the biggest backside 180 ollies, and I was always like, just amazed at how he was skating and how much power he had on a skateboard. And I was just like, fuck, dude, that's the shit. That's what I want to do. We started getting video cameras the later 80s. We started like when we were able to get tapes. I mean, that was how we got sponsored. We made Sponsor Me tapes and sent them out west.
It wasn't too long before I started hanging out with Keith a lot. And we'd always film each other. We'd always have a camera, and it was always, you know, we always wanted to get product and free shit, and you know, sending tapes out to like sponsors that we liked.
I think we were just trying to get free shit, but yeah, we wanted to be sponsored. You know, our skill level was starting to get better and better and better, and you know, me and Keenan were like best buddies, so we were just like, we made our Sponsor Me tapes together and sent them out. One day, I went over to Fuji building to meet Keenan, and Shrugi was there just like hanging out. Shrugi Rouge, he was the team manager for Thunder and Spitfire.
We had been sponsoring the Shut team. I went to visit them in their haunts, and they hooked me up with a younger guy. It was actually a kid named Harold Hunter. And I specifically remember the day we encountered Huff, and there was 3 guys skating there and like filming and stuff. And when we left, I asked Harold, I'm like, who are those guys? Who is that kid? Who is that blonde kid? He's like, that's Keith, he's real nice, you know? So once like I kind of saw him on the streets, I knew he was gonna be a well-rounded skater. So I started sending him Thunder trucks and Spitfire wheels.
You know, we were like, holy fucking shit. It all came to my house, because Keenan lived up in the projects, and that shit wasn't gonna be, no one was gonna see it.
Yeah!
You know, 8th Street was really hot at that time. So I think we sent our tapes into 8th Street, and then I think I got a call from Dave Andrecht, and he started sending us Life product. And then through that, I got connected to Ron Allen.
Life was just something they started for me at 8th Street that I kind of had an idea of doing graphics for different people and kind of having my own thing, whereas like I just wanted to do something different than 8th Street. At the time, 8th Street had like a lot of people on the team list, and we wanted to do something small. And him and Keenan were both amateurs for Life.
I called 8th Street one day I don't know what I was calling for boards or something, and Ron Allen picked up the phone.
So I told him, don't call this number ever again, and just call me at my home number from now on. And that was like, kind of like, don't call 8th Street anymore, don't call Life, just call me, I'll take care of you. But then Life was becoming Fun, and so he became an AM on Fun with like Jesse Newhouse and John Reeves as pros on Fun.
Fun was a brand that we were doing out of Deluxe when we were trying to figure out how to do things. And Ron was an old friend of ours. We were in Northern California, and if something was happening in Northern California, we were trying to help it and be a part of it, you know? It wasn't like thought out business plans or anything. It was like, here's an old friend who's trying to do something. Let's see if we can put it together and make it work.
It must have been like 92 summer. I went on tour with those guys. I was stoked. I mean, whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna travel the country and just skate. Yeah, I'm in.
And he just seems so directed. I'd always thought skateboarders were kind of lazy up until I met Huff. Every day, up every morning, about 7:30, about 7:15, and he'd be gone. And it's like, whoa, like nobody had ever done, nobody on my teams had ever done that stuff.
Stepping back for a second, do you remember the decision to turn him pro?
Oh yeah. I remember going to him and going, hey, you know, all these people call you Huff. We're not really thinking about using Hufnagel. You think your parents would get bummed? And he's like, no, you know, people know me as that. So I was like, oh, that's sick. Used Huff like the UPS logo. His name was like really easy to work with graphic-wise.
We used to do this on Fun, and that's a real board. I think people thought it was bigger than it was. I think Ron was putting every single thing back into the company and giving people what he thought they deserved, but it was so small, there's just no money.
Yes, there was this reality of largeness. Like, we were huge, and we were out of my studio apartment. You know, it says 488 Alcatraz number 3. So in apartment number 3 is where this goes on. And it would be hard to convince people that we were a small company.
I'm here, skateboarding, being a part of this team. I didn't know any of the business that went behind it. And it all seemed good till, you know, we started going on tour and we started all fighting and beefing, and this was the young crew that was starting to get a little bit of buzz. People were starting to see him, and they're seeing other people making moves. It just started to fall apart on our end. This, you know, the skater kids all wanted more.
On tour, Huff, because of his work ethic, was doing rather well financially. A lot of kids knew who he was, were buying his board. Keenan and Pepecki were kind of like, we deserve. And it was like, no, you guys gotta work as hard. In the middle of tour, they decided, we're quitting.
Pepecki and Keenan, they basically said, we quit, and left. And I was just like, fuck, dude, I was, you know, trying to be loyal, but like, kind of pissed off and didn't know where to go. I was like, dude, I need to quit. I just need to not be doing this anymore. So I quit, and I just remember I was skating down to Visadero one day, and Jim Thiebaud just pulled up, and he's like, hey, you need to come talk to me.
It was before cell phones and before all that stuff, and I knew that he was in San Francisco, and I was like, I'm gonna go find this kid. And I just got in my white Honda and drove around for like a day and a half down the avenues, because everyone would just skate, pushing around San Francisco, so you knew if you went to 9 or 10 of the spots, at some point you were bound to hook up with people. And I just went looking for Huff, and that was it. And I just rolled the window down, pull over, and just was like, what are you doing, dude?